Africa is one of the few, it's a continent broken up, but it's really, we look at it as a country, us as African Americans. Like, I think of Africa, I don't think of it as countries. I think of it as a bunch of states, but it should be a country. We're going to talk about group economics. Imagine if Africa had one currency. But just understanding that, you know, the complexities of Africa, even Nigeria, 270 million people, the oil comes from there. You know, I had a great understanding of Nigeria when I went 2019, the oil that comes from Africa, but they have no refineries. They export their oil and then they buy back gas because they don't have refineries. They can build the infrastructure with their wealth. That let me know everything I needed to know in terms of, oh, I know exactly what's going on.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Yes.
You guys chose the music?
So first and foremost, we want to thank Wharton for having us. This is something that we definitely don't take lightly. You know, it's been a tremendous journey for us, and this is another milestone that we get to, you know, check off the bucket list. So this is going to be fun, and to do it with these guys, we've been talking for the last hour, so this is going to be a definitely fun conversation for sure. But before we want to start, I just wanted to say thank you. Really appreciate it. All right, so let's get into it. You guys want to say anything before we start?
No, I mean, I'm just in the presence of greatness, so.
Yes.
No. Thank you all. That's all. Just thank y'all for allowing us to be here. We want to have a great conversation. Hopefully you take something from this. But most importantly, I know we say this a lot and it sounds cliche. Like let's all connect. Let's find a way for us to build. You know, I have a lot going on and this is being recorded.
I'm not sure if you noticed.
There are some job openings. That's all I'm trying to say. Without saying I'm gonna fire people.
Yeah, clap it up for job openings.
It's like Oprah. You're the new Oprah.
You got a job. They got a job.
You got a job.
The whole world.
I love that.
Shout out to the cadets. They got a job.
For sure. It's a lot of cadets in here. I didn't know where I was at. Getting ready for war. Hopefully not.
Perhaps not. Maybe.
Hopefully not. So let's get into it. I know we're going to, you know, ask each other questions, but I want to ask you guys a question. How did this partnership come together? You guys obviously, you know, played in the league, and that's a brotherhood. But now you have a different brotherhood in business and in, you know, new age media communication. So how did this partnership come together with you guys?
Well, I mean, he's a great storyteller in terms of like how we actually met. And so I'll do Tarantino style. And I'll go later and then he'll go back in time. But essentially, you know, with the media part, you know, we have such similar, you know, viewpoints of the world and the things we see. But I think we speak to it differently. And I think it's communicated to the masses. You know, I have, you know, the folks that I can speak to, and then he has the folks that he can speak to, and we feel like we can cover a lot of ground. But what we were seeing is just owning your own IP and understanding the power behind it. You know, growing up, I think all we had was Bob Johnson and BET. And there's been a lot of conversation behind that in terms of, you know, Jay-Z's doing it now. You know, we're building up our own properties. You know, we were talking about Rihanna and Fenty outside. We're talking about a lot of NBA athletes with underwear lines. We're talking about the Skims deal with the NBA. And I've had a lot of conversation. We can talk about this later in terms of what do we do with those properties once we build them up? Because there's a lot of the feedback can be negative sometimes if we sell it. But then I also heard, well, isn't that the purpose? To IPO? And I think you've done an incredible job of enlightening your listeners, which is our community, in terms of participating in public companies. And so, yes, we should go out and reap the fruits of our labor in terms of what we're building. But when we do go public, like, our people can participate, and that's how you sell it, you know. And so there's not that negative connotation from behind it, coming from that. And so with us too, we have conversations like this all the time, and that's why we chose to go out. And as you know, I have a deal with ESPN, and ET's had deals that he's done in the media space, and so we can use those platforms to leverage to raise our profile. But then we have our own property that we can go out and we can try to scale and go deeper into our conversations and to our listeners and kind of give them some insights on our minds and how we got to where we are, having success, not just on the court, but off the court.
And just to go further into that, you know, myself and Dre, we met like back in '09. So he was in the league. I was getting ready to go into my last year of college and join the league. So when I walked into the gym in Chicago, we were able to, you know, make a friendship. A year later, I get drafted to the Sixers. I was his rookie. And, you know, he was a vet to me. So we kind of had our ups and downs as
Thank you for being nice.
Very, very kind
as
of
a
you.
vet rookie. And, you know, our first 5 or 6 months was kind of rocky, but eventually we realized we were kind of the same individual, the same mindset. And I think that's where the friendship grew. So once he left Philly and we went through our career, we stayed connected and stayed locked. And over time, I got offers for different media outlets and different shows, but I really just took my time to really try to formulate it and make it the most organic. And I think the number one thing is trying to find people who you relate to, and most importantly, who support you. And that's how Point Forward started. And, you know, just for myself, after being in Philly, such a tough media market, one thing that I really put priority on is getting my own story out there and telling my own narrative and, you know, telling the narrative from the athlete that somewhat gets mixed up. Some of the best people I ever met were in the NBA, and some of the smartest people I ever met were in the NBA. And to reach that feat is no small task. And I think to tell that story from super accomplished individual like Dre, or, you know, seeing things like myself really, you know, open up the market and spread the narrative for what athletes can be. And, you know, 3 years ago when we started, it was a small conversation to the point now we're meeting with billionaires and some of the top people and, you know, breaking on Wharton, talking to, you know, the future minds. So it's been a cool thing and it's been fun.
That's pretty dope. I've always wanted this because where you land in the league is important. Obviously, you guys start in Philly, but branding is something that has shifted a little bit, right? When you came in the league out of Arizona, you out of Ohio State, there wasn't a focus on making the individual the person, like the star, right? Like we had a few stars and brands got behind it, but everybody didn't have their own individual situation. So I wonder, where did that shift for you guys, right? Was it the move to Golden State where now you're in an area, Silicon Valley particular, where the conversation outside of basketball is happening and you're privy to it and now starting to take that information and applying it? And did that relationship with him continue? Right now you're learning things, but you're not on the same team. Hey, let me put you up on some game.
No, for sure. It's interesting now. I think they're too young putting their brands together. I think you need to show your excellence on the court first. And that's where you really establish yourself. I think is the inverse effect has happened where you got a kid with a brand. And I'm like, well, wait, why do you have a brand? Oh, you play basketball. As opposed to he's one of the best at what he does. And I think as technology's gotten better, and with making sports more valuable, is you can get closer to the athlete than ever. And that actual individual athlete is B2C, where I can actually touch my fans. Like I can get close to them, like they can see me. And before it was only your superstars. We call them your signature guys who had their own shoes. Well, now we were just talking about a guy in the back who's at the all-white party, but he's making his presence felt. And people identify him, although he may not be a household name. And so even if you're the ninth man on the team, you still can have a brand. But you can make yourself the best ninth man in the NBA. Like, make your presence on the court first. And I think that's where it's changed as time has gone on. And I was fortunate enough to have the same agent as Kobe Bryant. So I was able to see how Kobe was moving. And so that's what led me to understand, like, all right, I got to do it on the court first. But now these kids are getting smarter. It's just they have to make sure they take care of, you know, what they have going on the court. And going to the Bay was amazing. But my business partner, Rudy, who's in here right now, we were talking about Silicon Valley years before I got there. Just didn't know that I would be there. But when the opportunity came, that was a part of the strategy. When I got into free agency, the Warriors didn't have cap space. And I actually had a meeting with them. And I'll never forget, I had a meeting with New Orleans. Sacramento offered me an amazing deal. It was damn near double the deal I took. Like, it was a lot. But I had to sign it within like 5 minutes. And he was like, the owner was like, Andre, you're the future. You're Kings 2.0. Incredible. And I still have a great relationship with him. Because the vision that I took to the Warriors, he actually wanted me to bring that vision to the Kings. He actually saw it. And I've never spoken that. And he deserves a lot of credit. He saw that. Like, listen, you're the blueprint for what the NBA player should be in terms of your business. Because he came from the Warriors, so he saw it. But he didn't know I had a meeting with the Warriors because the Warriors had no cap space. But I actually set up a meeting with the Warriors. They were like the fourth team I met with that day. And it was Mark Jackson, it was Joe Lacob, and they had 2 execs in there. And they said, Andre, we appreciate you inviting us in. You know, just kind of know why you wanted us to come in, knowing that we don't have cap space. And then I just broke down why I wanted to play for them. Like, hey, like, I see it in Steph Curry. We just lost to them. Like, Steph wasn't Steph, but I see it. And you got this kid I had to guard named Klay Thompson. I never heard of this kid, but this kid can shoot it like none other. I didn't tell them that I had been following Silicon Valley, but I said there's some business things that I'm trying to figure out. It was in the back of my mind. And they were like, well, we appreciate it. And we appreciate how you feel about our organization, but there's nothing we can do. But my agent and their GM, who was there, Bob Myers, they used to work together at the same agency. Dwight Howard was stalling one weekend. I was going to sign with the Dallas Mavericks on like a Friday. And Mark Cuban is called and said, well, Dwight Howard pushed back his decision to Monday. So you got to wait. My agent and the Warriors GM figured out like a trade situation. Like, Richard Jefferson would go here, 2 other players go here, opens up cap space. We can get it done. And then sometimes it's like, why do you believe in higher power? Like, some things just work out for the reasons they're supposed to work out. And boom, it worked out crazy. And then, the rest is history.
No, you never know. You never know.
Lead with intent.
So I want to fast forward it a little bit. And Dre, I know obviously we'll talk about your role with the NBA, but NBA PA. But I'm interested to know your idea and what the vision is for NBA basketball on the continent of Africa.
Yeah, well, it's some interesting developments have happened there recently. I know the head of NBA Africa just stepped down. And so, Africa is one of those. I have to speak different now with the role I have. Evan has, allowed me the ability to really express myself. And he hates it when I'm PC. But I think he's starting to understand, the power of the voice, and that's why I love him next to me, because he can just speak. But Africa, historically, not like the last 10, 20 years, I'm talking about the history of humanity, in terms of they have, 70-80% of the world's resources, and then how it's been taken advantage of, the human capital, how that's been taken advantage of. I was just listening to a speech not too long ago, like, how old is Nigeria in terms of the actual nation? In the 60s?
Yeah, I think it's like 70s.
70s, right?
Yeah, still a relatively young country, yeah.
Very, very, very young.
Naja boy.
Yeah.
The Naja boys are here.
Yes.
Jollof rice for lunch.
And yes, my father is Nigerian, Benin City, Ado. And Africa is one of the few, it's a continent broken up, but it's really, we look at it as a country, us as African Americans. Like, I think of Africa, I don't think of it as countries. I think of it as a bunch of states, but it should be a country. And we're going to talk about group economics. Imagine if Africa had one currency. Mm-hmm. But now I can get in trouble if I say that. But just understanding that the complexities of Africa, even Nigeria, 270 million people. The oil comes from there. I had a great understanding of Nigeria when I went 2019, and the oil that comes from Africa, but they have no refineries. And so they export their oil and then they buy back gas because they don't have refineries, but they can build the infrastructure with their wealth. But that let me know everything I needed to know in terms of, I know exactly what's going on. And so with NBA Africa, we're seeing a lot of talent come from Africa. Pascal Siakam, Giannis is Nigerian, Joel Embiid. We got MVPs now. And the interesting thing is, they might get mad at me, but there's NBA Africa, there's NBA China, right? But the players, we only participate in the revenue from NBA America. And so there's some things that need to be worked on from that perspective. But that's something that's like near and dear to me. So my eyes are constantly on it. I sat on the board of a publicly traded company that was based in Africa, and we had talks in terms of like sponsoring the NBA Africa team. And so and then a lot of players are involved. Luau Deng, close friend of mine, not close enough, but I look up to him in terms of like what he's been able to build, the portfolio he's been able to build, what he's done with. What team did he have? They made the Olympics. Sudan.
Yeah, Sudan.
I think it's South Sudan.
Yeah.
Man,
Royal Ivy.
We had Royal Ivy, who was my teammate here. He was the head coach. He's doing some amazing things. Basketball without borders.
Yeah.
We have a lot of players that participated in that as kids in the NBA. And so we're seeing, we talk about building pipelines, right? We're talking about giving out jobs. And, just controlling or not controlling, but raising your talent. And so it's on my radar. And we've been having a lot of conversations in terms of like, how do you own a part of the business that you are the reason why the business exists, and athletes have never been able to participate in, the value increase of NBA teams. You talk about, ghost or phantom shares. I've had some interesting conversations about that. I like y'all. Y'all making me reveal a whole lot.
But seriously, you guys talk about brands and you talk about Andre or even, a brand I was able to have from the NBA. How did you guys organically start your brand to, now you have, festivals and people following you all over the world?
1.4 million subscribers.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually crazy. And y'all got it out the
clap.
basement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, the origin story really is formatted in purpose, to be honest with you. His career was as a financial advisor. I was a teacher. We had an opportunity, every summer I took kids from my neighborhood and they were part of this program. We would teach them about the things that they missed in the 10 months of school, right? So everybody goes to school and they're like, I don't remember anything. I didn't learn anything. You ask your kid, what'd you learn today? Nothing. Right. And so it was like, all right, I felt very complicit in that. If kids are going to school, I'm a teacher, they're learning nothing. I'm not doing my job, but I'm getting paid. And so there was an opportunity here. Like, we can educate kids about financial literacy, about college, about decisions that they were going to make around money at 14, with the hopes that if they got it at 14, they would be more advanced by 19, 20, 25. And so financial literacy was at the cusp of that. It was like, all right, bet, we're going to pay these kids to be in the program. Let's teach them about money. He had just started his career in advising. I'm like, this is perfect. You can come in. And so we started co-teaching that. Like, I learned about finance from him. He learned how to have classroom management from me, create lesson plans. And so we did that. In my mind, the vision was, I need to have this program throughout New York first, right? Because parents would see it. They're like, this is incredible. How do I scale this? I'm like, I can't figure it out. He was always into social media. He was like, this is how we do it. So he had our COO, who's up there right now, Abdullah. He said, hey, look, shout out to Ab.
All right.
He was like, look, I want you to record the classrooms. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm still trying to figure out how to scale this, like, physically. He was like, just keep recording the classroom. And he was huge on content, putting it up. And that led to him creating his own platform, right? He wanted to teach people about finance in a different way, right? Sometimes when we think about finance, it's a foreign language, right? And we were coming to like Rosetta Stone. We were coming like, let's break the monotony of this stush feeling when it came to financial education. Let's talk it in our language. And so he was doing that for multiple people, had his own public access show. I'll let him tell his story. And then people like, wait, where's the rest of that? We need more of that. Where's the episode? And one day it was just like, look, want to do a show? Let's do this podcast. We sat in my basement, and we're like, all right, let's do it. And that's how Earn Your Leisure was birthed, really. We came up with the name pretty quickly. He was already using it as a hashtag. And from there, it was consistent. We was like, all right, well, here's the vision. These are the 10 things we need to do. Here are 10 people we want to interview. Let's just go attack it. And really, it started with 3 iPhones and that idea, and it branded into what you see now.
Yeah, I think it's.
I don't want to cut you off. I just want you to. Can you explain to me what you took from the public access, and like just explain to me how that works within your story, and then how you knew how to maneuver into, subscribers, streaming, and all that, and the difference in the revenue streams and like how much is valued at.
Yeah. I never went to business school, but I was always interested in business my whole life. So I was studying like real world case studies. So in 2012, Instagram was like fairly new. And, I got introduced to it, and like everybody else, I was on the app all the time. And when I'm first on Instagram, I'm just thinking like, this is a cool app. You get to share photos. At the time, it was no videos. And at that time, it was just for iPhone users. But I quickly realized something in this situation. So I used to follow this fashion blog, and the fashion blog had like 1 million followers at that time. And at that time, if you had 1 million followers, you could reach 1 million people. And what I realized was that what she was doing, the girl that actually was running the fashion blog, was that she would post like lookbooks on like, this actress wore this and this singer wore this. But in between the looks, she would do like organic ads. So it'd be like a small boutique in Philly that had a blazer, and you didn't really know it was an ad unless you was actually really studying it. So right then I'm like, this is crazy. Because how I was looking at it was like, okay, how many people subscribe to New York Times? Probably 1 million people in circulation from New York Times every single day. And how much money does it cost to run an ad in the New York Times? Like $50,000, hundreds. How much money does it cost to run an ad on NBC, ABC? Millions of dollars, right? But I'm thinking, I didn't know, but I'm thinking to myself that they're probably paying her $500 or $1,000. But they can reach just as many people as all of these traditional outlets. So then that's when I was like, okay, advertising is going to change. This is the new wave. So I actually had a meeting with him, and I was explaining this to him, and I was like, we need to start a fashion blog. And we did. We started a fashion blog. It was called Fashion Wave. And we actually got it to like 12,000 followers. But that was the original point, was like, social media is something that's going to take over the world. Most people have no idea how they're actually using it. They're just using it as consumers. But there's a business behind this. This is before influencer was even a word. This is before you had to put ad. You could just organically do it. That didn't work out, but the idea was still there. So the next idea was, I was a financial advisor at the time. So I wanted to become a celebrity financial advisor. That was my original goal. I wanted to work with athletes, entertainers, because I felt like I played basketball my whole entire life. And I was looking at the people that was representing athletes, and I'm like, I know that they're not from the culture. They're not listening to the music. I know the music. I'm listening to it. Why should they get to work with these people? I know I'm more qualified because I can actually sit down and have a conversation. But I didn't know anybody. I had no inroads. I had no advanced degree, and I didn't really have a way to actually get my way into the door. So the idea was to become a famous celebrity financial advisor, because I was looking at the landscape and I'm like, okay, social media has provided a platform for anybody to become a celebrity chef, a celebrity trainer. Previously, you could only become a celebrity if you was an athlete or an entertainer, but now you could be a celebrity anything. I'm like, well, you maybe be able to be a celebrity financial advisor, right?
First of its kind.
Anything is possible, right? Anything is possible, bro.
Just maybe. So that's when all of the content comes into play, right? Where it's record everything. I'm mad we're not recording this, but that's the number one rule in life is to record everything because you never know. So we record.
We are recording.
We're recording this, but you got to get.
It's like,
You got to get the organic. You got to get the organic
cell phone footage algorithm breaker.
So now it's like, okay, record the classroom, record selfie videos, record everything. To your question about the public access show, the number one rule in life is to cultivate relationships. There's a lot of number one rules in life, by the way.
Just so y'all know.
Yes.
3 more are coming.
So you got to cultivate, yes. You got to cultivate relationships. So I was like, okay. At that time, I wanted to get in front of all like the top real estate developers and entrepreneurs and architects. These are people that have made a lot of money and successful, but nobody knows them. And what I realized is that the number one rule in life is that everybody wants to talk about themselves, right? So I'm like, okay, if I could provide a platform for somebody to talk about themselves, then now that's actually a way for me to build a relationship. So I get offered a public access show. I never looked at it as a public access show. I looked at it as a TV show. And that's how I pitched it. I would go to somebody and be like, I have a TV show. Do you want to be? Nobody's going to turn down being on a TV show, especially if they've never been on TV. So what that actually did was help me to sharpen my communication skills and learn how to actually interview people, right? So all of this is happening at the same time. We have a relationship from growing up together and working in the classroom as he just described. And my social media following is building at the time. So when we start Earn Your Leisure, the show, now we have a lot of things working for us, right? So when we hit the ground, it's like an explosion because we was able to actually provide information in a very relatable manner. So we're kind of like the ladder to the clouds. I think a lot of times in our community, there have been a small pocket of black intellectuals, but they have not been able to fully communicate or relate to the vast majority of black people on the ground. So now you have a disconnect. The intellectuals feel like they're better than the masses. The masses feel like the intellectuals are bourgeoisies and they just like disregard them, right? Like, so I'm like, well, there's value in both places. We need each other, right? So it's like, okay, we have an interesting background where we're able to communicate to everybody. We can be in an Ivy League school or we can be in a penitentiary communicating to people. And we have been in both places, communicating with people and educating people. So when we were able to provide the education, it was done in a very non-traditional manner when it comes to business. So the way that we dress, we had hoodies and t-shirts. The way that we talk, we was using hip hop references, but we're breaking down case studies and we're actually talking about very high level business, right? And everybody wants to make money. So what happens is that it's just perfect timing. It hits social media and then it just explodes on social media. My original thesis on social media actually turned out to be right. Like I said, we just had to wait some time and we switched lanes a little bit, but the idea of it came to fruition. And then there's opportunities in every crisis. So when the pandemic happened, everything shut down and everybody was scared. And a lot of people, unfortunately lost their jobs and some people passed away as well. But then some people benefited. We were on the side of the people that actually benefited because when everybody was home, they had nothing to do. So then they start watching us. And then we develop a show called Market Mondays where we're actually teaching people about stocks, investing. Then something that happened in our favor was that everybody got a stimulus check. Then something that happened in our favor is that the stock market started to skyrocket. So now people are making money in real time from our information. And then it becomes like a cult following. Now everybody's passing it along and they're telling their friend, they're telling their cousins. And before you know it, we're at like 1 million people that's watching us, right? So this is all part of the Earn Your Leisure story, how we was able to grow organically. But it's a mix of, I think, having a unique product, mixing it with the right time and maximizing the moment. We're in a moment right now where traditionally media, if we were to try to start a show 15, 20 years ago, we would have to go to Bloomberg, CNBC, ABC, and we would have to compromise who we are. We would have to like shave our face, and we would have to talk in a language that we didn't fully even feel comfortable talking in. We would have to wear a suit. We would have to be under the umbrella of them. We couldn't own our own show. It'd be impossible. But now the cell phone has empowered the creatives and independents. And now we're able to break through without having to go through the actual gatekeepers or the larger institutions. But what has propelled us to even a higher level is there's a middle ground that can be reached, where now independence is at an all-time high and we have the leverage. But there's only so far you can go as an independent from just exposure, resources. There's still some level of benefit from corporate. But now we can work with corporate from a relationship standpoint as opposed to them owning everything standpoint, because we have leverage. So now we've been able to leverage with a lot of different corporate relationships, which have helped us expand our reach globally and expanded our reach and accelerated the growth in a much quicker manner. So this is an interesting time for creatives, because now you can grow your following, whatever you're doing, use that leverage to work with corporate, but maintain ownership, maintain independence, and have real leverage and real partnership as opposed to being an employee. And that's something that has accelerated our growth as well. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but I think that it might be beneficial for anybody that's interested in new age business and media.
It's crazy because as he's talking, and I was listening to you, Dre, when you were talking about Nigeria, when we talk about how we creatively are reaching people, it made me think about the first time, like what you were speaking about was Aliko Dangote, right? He has an opportunity to change the export-import ratio from Nigeria. And so I'm thinking, like, how do I teach kids about that? How do I walk in the classroom and tell them, like, they should know this person? And so our way was hip hop, right? The first lesson was I took Jay-Z's line. I said, all blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even. And I showed them 6 people from the world of sports and entertainment. They knew every one of them. Jay-Z, Beyonce, Floyd Mayweather, Dr. Dre, and Oprah. They knew them all, right? And Jordan. And then I gave them another sheet with the 6 wealthiest people, black people on the planet. And they knew none. I said, damn, Jay kind of prophesized this, right? He really showed us like all we had until we even, because we've never recognized anything outside that world until I get to teach him about the wealthiest guy on the planet, who was Aliko Dangote. And now this is the crossroads. And so now that group of kids never gets to say they don't know who that guy is. And guess what? He didn't do it because he dribbled. He didn't do it because he could throw a football or he can spit around. He did it from natural resources. He did it from oil. He did it from cement. These are all different things. So now that kid or those kids that are now hearing it know that there's value in other things than the traditional things that have been fed to us through the TV, right? We have to be an entertainer. We have to be, there's no value in the guy who's going to be the doctor in the neighborhood. There's no value to the person who's going to be the teacher or who's going to be the chemist or who's going to be the next person in venture capital. Those people weren't celebrated until this moment in time. And so that was kind of the thing, was like, all right, this is how we now can creatively reach people, use social media, use hip hop, merge it all together and deliver it to the people.
But how long did that breakthrough take? Because when you sit there, we talked about just recently, you know, to be more than an athlete was a thing that just popped up like 5 or 6 years ago. And then a lot of times when you're coming down and talking about sports and entertainment and what young individuals typically want to be, they necessarily don't want to hear all the rah-rah, like, educational stuff. And how did you guys keep your confidence up? We always have a saying, don't, you know, diss the caterpillar and jot the butterfly. Mm-hmm. So, like, it couldn't have been that easy going in and, you know, continue to build step by step. So how did you guys keep that momentum up and the faith? Did you ever get discouraged?
Well, I think that when losing is not an option, then you really have no choice but to win. So it's a few ways how you look at the time frame. You can look at it from when we started social media. That's a relatively short period in the grand scheme of things of success. Like it just kind of went up. But then you look at it from like your whole entire life takes you to the moment that you're at. And that's a very long journey, right? So it's like he was a teacher and he was preparing for that moment without knowing it. I was a financial advisor and I was preparing for that moment without knowing it, right? So I feel that you have to fully believe in what you're doing to you can't really even think about it not working. It's only a matter of how do I get it to work. So like for me, my personal journey, I never really had a job before ever. So I went to school and then I became a financial advisor. It's a commission-based situation. So anybody can get hired. I wasn't working on Wall Street. I was working for an insurance company. It's not too difficult to get hired in that situation, just being honest. But it's also extremely difficult to be successful in it. That's why it's not difficult to get hired. Like 90% of people is not going to be successful.
That's 22.
But you know, it's extremely difficult type of job, especially at 24 years old, to try to convince people that they, you know, need life insurance and IRAs and stuff like that. But my alternative, like I said, I didn't have an advanced degree. I went to a state school. My alternative was to actually get a job, and that wasn't going to happen. So I really had no choice but to make it happen. So I think, you know, and when you use that type of framework, then you really don't think about like tough times. Or like, because at the end of the day, what is a tough time? We really never really had anything anyway. So that's something that we already used to. Like, I mean, if you think about it, like, it can't really get too much worse. You only really have you really have nothing to lose when you have nothing to lose, right? Like when you become a millionaire, now you start to think like, damn, I can really screw this up and I'm back to zero. But I mean, if you have $5,000 in your bank account, what's the worst that can happen?
You're closer to zero.
That's real. That's real.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the reality. Like we grow up, we're so close to zero. So what is the risk, right? But I thought he was going to answer this a whole different way. I was going to like, look, because the thing about I've known him since he was probably 11 years old. He's known me vice versa. There was never a time where our confidence ever wavered in ourselves. What we were going to do was we would figure that out, but we were always confident in what we were going to be. Like I knew he was going to be successful, probably vice versa. And our community knew that too, because we were rooted in the community. But what happened over time was that we realized the representation and showing up as your authentic self was the key, right? So most people, when I worked, they were like, well, you're the gym teacher. I'm like, yeah, I'm the physical educator, but there's other things I do too. But people will only judge you from where they see you at, right? So like even now, if I go back to the school, they always ask me if I'm coming back. I'm like, well, about that, right? But they only could see me as that. But there was so much more to it. So when we started to grow as a company, it was like, all right, don't change who you are, right? When I was standing in front of the kids in the Bronx, I had the freshest Jordans on, right? I had G-Shock watches. I had a BMW because I knew one day a kid was going to look at Mr. Miller's and say, I want to be him. Like a lot of kids are going to grow up saying they want to be you. But I was like, I want kids to grow up and say they could be me, because the chances that they could be me, this is a 100% chance, right? Right? Like making it to the NBA is 1 in a million, right? But being somebody that is productive in their community, somebody that's giving back, somebody that's educating their community, they could do that. So if I could show them, I could have the nice car that you guys have. I could have some of the watches and some of the kicks, and that's where it stops. I'm making it that's where it stops.
Yeah, you might get luckier. You never know.
That's where
you've
it
been
stopped.
in Dubai. I've never been in Dubai.
But like now, so that's the thing. Now they see, that's my teacher, right? He was my teacher. I know him. Right, he's in Dubai. He just sat with Steve Harvey. He's here with Iguodala and Evan Turner. Like right now, he's speaking at Wharton. Yo, he used to teach me how to catch a football. Like anything is possible, but the representation was there. So when you see us show up in a hoodie and we have on fresh kicks and, you know, we do travel and we like to wear nice clothes, that's all part of the presentation because that's authentically who we were prior to all of this. All we get to do now is show up as we are and people are receptive to it because it's like, wait, these guys is real. They're the real deal. This is real. This is really who they are every day. And that's the easiest part. We get to show up as ourselves every single day.
Now I got a question to that for all three of you. Because this is, you know, I have battles with this sometimes where, and I had a teammate, his name was Andrew Bogut, and he and I have gotten really close. And I learned this from my mother. You know, I wrote a book, The Sixth Man, and go buy it if you haven't read it.
On Amazon right now.
I never planned on saying that, to be honest. But my mother taught me at a young age. I had a story in there where my mother had two voices, and I said this to her one time. She looked at me crazy. I was like, Mom, when you have on makeup, you're nice. And when you don't have your makeup, I think I'm going to get a whooping at any given moment. My mom was 6 foot tall, so I was scared of her until I was like 15, like frightened. And she had two voices, though. You know, she had the voice at home, and then we went out to work. She had the other voice. And I think as African Americans, we all have that. You got to switch it up. And so the code switching, thank you. And so Andrew Bogut he said to me, he's like, Andrew, why do you talk different to like your black teammates, and then you talk different when you're talking to like, you know, white people? And I couldn't quite explain it to him, but I was trying to explain to him, like, my mother, when we went to go, she was on the phone. I remember the phone conversation, talking to this guy about a house rental. We used to rent this small 2-bedroom apartment. Like, I went in there like maybe 10 years ago, and like I'm like in there like this, and I'm like, my brother and I, how do we live in this space together? You know, he's the same height as me, and the guy approved the rental. Like, yes, it's available to you. She took my brother and myself with her to see this, to get the house. And so we pulled up, knock on the door. He answers the door. He's like, can I help you? She was like, yes, I'm the lady you spoke to on the phone. But her voice, he couldn't tell what it was. The house is not available. So from that moment, like I understood like how the world works. Like, whoa. And I'm like 9 years old. Like, who understands that at 9 years old? And like, it's just like what you're saying. It's like, how low can you go what can you lose when you don't have anything to lose? And so that leads me to now, I still have to maneuver how I speak. I have to be PC, more PC in some places. You know, I can turn it down to other places. Even when we speak, you know, he's always saying, I want to see that Springfield in you. But for 3 of you, you know, this is my question. You know, the higher you keep moving up, you're going to open doors that, you know, you've never been in before, or doors we've never been in before. Like, I'm thinking, you know, we're seeing entertainers enter these billionaire realms, and they have to maneuver different. You know, we're in this room. Like, we don't have the black Elon Musk, whatever you want to call it, or the Zuckerberg. Like, when are we going to have our own tech companies that are, you know, $1 trillion market caps? But we're inching closer. And so as you move up, you say you want to stay yourself. Like, we always want to stay ourselves. But are you thinking about how you plan on maneuvering once you get into certain places? And like, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the only thing I can change is like I probably curse less in certain places, but that's just the truth. But like anything else, because you know sometimes you might walk into rooms and you might be like, man, am I sure I'm supposed to be here? And one thing I always say is like, I've been told is look for the signs. And when you talk to other people, shout out to everybody. You guys are very talented, accomplished people, and so am I. And like when you talk to other people, you see the confidence that individuals have and sit in front of you have and all the things they can do. And it's like, okay, you guys are able to do that. You're able to do, like you said, what I was able to do was 1 in a million. And, you know, you can be a teacher and be a lot of different things. And it's like, I try to find, you know, the one little, you know, speck that I can take to really build from. So when I sit there and I see, you know, great people speak with confidence, I'm like, well, I came from a situation of, you know, poverty where, you know, single parent, wasn't supposed to make it out, wasn't supposed to be in this situation. I was able to do it with, you know, 1/10 of a chance. So every time I look there, I'm like, all right, if these people can do it, I can leave here and do it, because I've done some amazing stuff that most people can't even fathom. We talk about a lot of situations, even just with career or like mistakes. It's like you're worried about how people judge you, but a lot of people stopped their mission a long, long time ago and just went to the sideline and started pointing like, yo, that ain't him. And it's like, no, I'm your superior. I'm him. Worry about yourself. You know what I mean? And then from there, I move on and just keep going. But, you know, I got to keep it. Dre does a great job of smoothing it out. But my mission, my delivery can be a little bit more aggressive. But I definitely earn the right to know I'm in that room and gain confidence from comprehending that if you can do great things, I can do great things. And I take it from there.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the confidence. And Dre, with that story you told about your mother, it hit me dead in the heart, because I remember calling my dad at work. My parents are from Jamaica. Yeah, shot. Okay. Now that we said that, now that's out the way. So I would call him, and you know that he has a heavy patois dialect. But that's changed over the years. When I would call him, he worked in Manhattan at corporate, and I told the story. I really never know what he did, but I would call him, and he would answer it. And my brothers used to laugh. I'll do it for y'all. He'd be like, hello? And I'd be like, Dad, it's me. And then, you know, he would talk to me in his regular voice. And when I would call my mom, she couldn't. She never did it. But it used to irk me then, but it irks me even more so now. So like somebody calls the house, he'll do that. And it's because I'm fighting for him to never have to do it. Right. And so when we show up in these rooms, I show up exactly who I am right now. Right. The guy who used to stand in front of the classroom who couldn't curse, right, is the same guy that's going to sit on CNBC or Good Morning America or Bloomberg, same guy that goes to the Breakfast Club or Joe Budden. I'm able to change the conversation. The conversations change, the information changes, but the person never changes. And so we're comfortable in the barbershop or we're comfortable right here in the business school because we trust and we're confident in what we know. And that's the most important thing. I think a lot of times people feel intimidated because they don't know what they're talking about, right? And so that's our thing, is like, I'm a constant learner. So every day, like I told you, I just read the Wall Street Journal before I got here. Let's have a conversation, right? I'm going to be part of the conversation because I make it my point to. I don't ever want to walk into a room where I'm going to feel like I don't feel confident, right? We sat down in some prestigious rooms over the past month and it was like, I feel like, yeah, we've earned every aspect of respect and determination and dedication to be in these rooms. So it starts with the confidence, but it also goes into that part of having the education and feeling like, you know what, I belong.
I want to answer this. I'll try to speed it up, but two parts. So I never really had to worry about coast. I grew up radical, and I never had a job. So I never really had to worry about code switching.
What? Hey, Tommy, he really Tommy.
Because you only code switch when you're not in a position of power. Elon Musk can curse on TV and it's okay. That's a fact. So, but
they got finger snaps on that joint. That was crazy. Yeah.
For sure.
Harlem Renaissance.
But what I did realize when I was working as a financial advisor in my office, everybody in my office was pretty much older white man. And in the beginning part of like the training, they will make you watch videos of yourself. Like we have like a practice sale, and I never really realized that I actually had a New York accent until I actually watched myself speak. And then I started to realize it. And I kind of became a little self-conscious of how I spoke because I know that I didn't have the best diction. I know that, I had an accent and I didn't sound like anybody else in the office. But I realized that what I thought might have been a disadvantage was actually a superpower. And that's actually helped us, is that there's millions of people that actually talk like I talk and relate to how I like communicate as opposed to how somebody else communicates. Those people were left out of the conversation for a long period of time. So never run away from who you are, embrace who you are, because that's actually a superpower. Now, you do have to be intelligent, and it is important to have a strong mastery of the language that you speak. So, it's like you don't wear a jumpsuit to a wedding. It's just common sense. So how you communicate in a barbershop might not be how you communicate.
That's I don't know. He talking about the Batman suit that Jaden wore.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of just knowing how to communicate properly, not necessarily code switching. I don't like code switching. I'll never code switch. But Steve Stouts told us something that was extremely important. I think that this has been the key to Earn Your Leisure success. It's the thinnest slice strategy. When you're black, you have to deal with a variety of different things that other people don't have to deal with or don't worry about. So for us, we walk a very thin line because most people that are on TV that are communicating finances that are black they're not relatable to the majority of black people, right? How they talk, how they look, whatever. And then there's a variety of different people in our culture of hip hop that aren't taken serious in the business world, right? So we have to be articulate enough to be respected at the highest levels of finance, to be here, right? But we also have to be edgy enough to still be likable, appealable, and relatable to the masses. That's extremely difficult. Very few people have been able to pull that one off. And that's something that we do. This is just a blessing that we've been blessed with. But this is something that when you're thinking about, your pathway forward, it's important. Because a lot of times when we get isolated in circles that we're in, but we can never forget about the overarching theme of black people. And no matter how good we're doing individually, nobody's successful if the vast majority of people are unsuccessful. And the vast majority of people are struggling. So it's important to keep relatability. It's important to be able to communicate to the masses while still having your integrity and being able to move up the ladder. Like I said, Elon Musk doesn't have to worry about that. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have to worry about that. They can just communicate and they just live freely. They don't have to worry about street credibility. They don't have to, but we do, right? So this is a very interesting conversation that you just brought up, but I just feel like, you know, in the world of media and communications and just everything, it's important that people have other people to look up to. That's why every kid wants to be a rapper and an entertainer, because those are jobs that they see as attainable. Because the architect, the doctor, they're not visible. They haven't made themselves visible a lot of times, and they're so far unrelatable that nobody's even going to try to be that, right? So if we have to, A, make ourselves more visible, and we have to, A, make ourselves more relatable as well. That way we can inspire more people, more kids to want to be more than just what they see on television. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.